At 2:09 in the afternoon on January 19, 1977, a cold front moved across the Northeast, and temperatures in New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio dropped below zero. Within 6 hours, natural gas demand across the region spiked by 40% above forecast. Pipelines can move gas at a fixed rate. They cannot accelerate on demand. What made the difference that night? What kept the furnaces lit and the industrial boilers running was not the pipeline system. It was the gas that had been put underground the previous spring. Natural gas had been stored in the earth for 60 years by the time that cold front arrived. The first successful underground storage project in North America was completed in 1915 in Welland County, Ontario. A depleted gas field converted to a reservoir, sealed by its own geology, is capable of receiving gas during summer and releasing it on demand in winter. The first American facility followed in 1916 at the Zoar field near Buffalo, New York. By 1930, 9 storage fields were operating in 6 states. By 1962, 279 had been activated. Today, the United States operates the largest underground natural gas storage system in the world. More than 4,000 billion cubic feet of working gas capacity, distributed across approximately 400 active facilities in 30 states, held in 3 different geological formations, managed by interstate pipeline companies, local distribution utilities, and independent storage operators. It is buried. It is invisible. It runs the country every winter, and the logic of underground gas storage is the same logic that governs every buffer in an industrial system. Production is steady, demand is not, and the gap between them has to be absorbed somewhere. Before we go further, if this kind of story matters to you, consider subscribing to the channel. Every video here is built around the systems that actually hold this country together. The power lines, the rail corridors, the infrastructure that most people never think about until it stops working. If that's the kind of documentation you want to keep watching, the subscribe button is how you tell us. And we want to hear from you. Did you work on a transmission line, a railway, a pipeline, a hydroelectric facility? Did a parent or grandparent spend their career maintaining infrastructure like this? Keeping the lights on. You keeping the freight moving? Leave it in the comments. These stories belong in this record. Now, back to the system. The most common form of underground natural gas storage in the United States is also the oldest and most straightforward: the depleted gas field. When a natural gas reservoir has been produced to the point where further extraction is no longer economically viable, what remains is a proven geological structure. The rock formation held gas for millions of years before the drillers arrived. The caprock, the impermeable layer above the reservoir that prevented the gas from migrating upward, is still intact. The wells are already drilled. The gathering system is already connected. The only thing missing is the gas. Converting a depleted field to storage requires reversing the flow. Can compressors on the surface push gas back down through the existing wells into the formation? As gas accumulates, the reservoir pressure builds. The same pressure that once drove production now works to contain the inventory. When demand rises, the process reverses again. The pressure differential between the reservoir and the surface pipeline does the work of extraction. The geology and production history of the field are already well understood, which reduces development risk and cost. A depleted reservoir costs between $5 and $6 million per billion cubic feet of working gas capacity to develop, far less than either aquifer or salt cavern storage. The infrastructure left behind from production reduces the capital required to convert it. Depleted fields account for 78% of total underground natural gas storage capacity in the United States. More than 3,000 billion cubic feet, held in hundreds of fields distributed across the producing and consuming regions of the country. In regions where depleted gas fields were not available, particularly across the Midwestern states, engineers turned to a different geological formation, the aquifer. An aquifer is a water-bearing rock formation. In the right geological conditions, a porous and permeable sedimentary rock layer, sandstone or limestone typically, sits beneath an impermeable caprock, exactly as it would in a productive gas reservoir. The difference is that the formation contains water, not gas. The caprock works the same way in both cases. If the structure is sound, it will hold gas just as reliably as it held water. Converting an aquifer to gas storage requires displacing the water. Gas is injected under high pressure into the formation. As gas enters the porous rock, it pushes the native brine downward and outward. The gas occupies the upper portion of the formation. Lighter than water, it naturally rises to the top of the structure beneath the caprock. This is not a rapid process. The first injection cycle in a new aquifer field can take years before the formation is ready to yield working gas at acceptable rates. Aquifer storage requires substantially more cushion gas than depleted fields, between 50 and 80% of total storage volume. The first aquifer storage field in the United States was developed in Kentucky in 1946. The Midwest today depends on aquifer storage to meet winter peak demand across states with no significant depleted gas reservoir base. Salt caverns solve a problem that neither depleted fields nor aquifers can solve adequately: the need to deliver enormous volumes of gas in a very short period of time. A depleted field holding 300 billion cubic feet of gas can release it, but slowly. The physics of flow through a porous rock matrix limits how fast gas can move from the reservoir to the wellbore. During a slow, sustained winter, a depleted field performs exactly as designed. During a sudden deep freeze, the kind that drives gas demand from expected levels to twice that within hours, a depleted field cannot keep pace. Salt caverns are different. They are not porous formations. They are voids, actual open spaces underground, dissolved from bedrock salt by injecting fresh water through a borehole. Fresh water is pumped down into the salt formation. The water dissolves the salt. Brine is pumped back up. The process continues until the cavern has reached its design dimensions. Some caverns reach 800 meters in height and 50 meters in diameter. Salt cavern facilities account for only 7% of total U.S. underground gas storage working capacity, but they deliver 23% of the gas withdrawn on any given peak day. The first salt cavern natural gas storage in the United States was developed in Michigan in 1961. The majority of U.S. salt cavern storage today is located in Gulf Coast salt dome formations. The operational cycle of the American underground gas storage system is organized around the calendar. Injection season runs from approximately April through October. The months when residential heating demand is low, pipeline throughput exceeds consumption, and the price of gas is typically at its seasonal low. Gas is compressed at the surface and driven into the storage formations at high pressure. Withdrawal season begins in November and runs through March. Each week during the storage season, the U.S. Energy Information Administration publishes the National Working Gas Storage Figure. This number moves markets. When storage is significantly below the 5-year average entering winter, gas prices rise in anticipation of supply shortfalls. When storage is above average, prices soften. In a typical year, the U.S. injects approximately 4 trillion cubic feet of gas into underground storage between spring and fall, and it withdraws approximately the same amount between fall and spring. Underground natural gas storage is not passive. It is a pressurized system holding enormous quantities of combustible gas in geological formations that have been engineered rather than simply discovered. On October 23, 2015, a well at the Aliso Canyon Natural Gas Storage Facility in the Santa Susana Mountains north of Los Angeles began leaking. A subsurface component of the well's casing had failed. Gas was escaping from the reservoir at depth and migrating upward through the annular space between the casing and the surrounding rock. The leak could not be stopped quickly. Attempts to plug the well from the surface failed repeatedly. A relief well had to be drilled to intercept the casing below the failure point. That process took more than 3 months. Now, by the time the leak was sealed on February 18, 2016, approximately 120,000 tons of methane had escaped into the atmosphere. The largest accidental release of methane in American history. More than 11,000 households were evacuated from the surrounding community of Porter Ranch. The incident accelerated federal and state regulatory action. Federal agencies strengthened the regulatory requirements for well integrity assessment, leak detection, and emergency shutdown procedures at all underground gas storage facilities in the country. The system stores vast quantities of energy. The engineering that contains it has to be as reliable as the geology. The underground natural gas storage system of the United States is infrastructure that operates in geological time. Built on formations that took millions of years to create, designed to function for decades, and extended from its origins in a single converted depleted field near Buffalo in 1916 to a national network of more than 400 facilities holding 4 trillion cubic feet of gas in 30 states. It is invisible in operation. Its components are underground. Its flows are measured in instruments inside sealed wellheads. Its deliverability is expressed in billions of cubic feet per day. The only visible evidence of its existence is a cluster of wellheads in a field, a compressor building off a rural highway, a network of metering stations connecting storage to pipeline. The physical logic of the system has not changed since 1916. Gas injected under pressure into a geological trap is held by the same forces that held it for millions of years before the first well was drilled. The engineering has become more reliable, the monitoring more precise, the regulation more rigorous. But the fundamental principle, store what you don't need now for the moment you do, is unchanged. It is in the ground. It runs in the dark. You use it every winter without knowing it is there. If this story gave you a clearer picture of what holds these systems together and what it takes when they come under pressure, subscribe to the channel. There are more corridors, more grids, more operations, and more decisions still to document. And if you have a connection to this kind of work, a relative who spent decades in a control room, a parent who worked a rail yard or a generating station, someone who was there when a system like this was tested, tell us in the comments. What did they operate? Where did they work? What do you remember them saying about the job? The most complete record of how these systems were built and run isn't in any report. It's in the people who were actually there.